skills, what do we say to them? Use your words. There's no more crying. So he is literally in the throes of figuring out, does my crying get me anything, or is it going to be my words? And for a lot of our kids, it's their nonverbal body language, isn't it? It's if we don't have a verbal individual that we're working with, a lot of times you're watching that like a hawk to see what they didn't like, what they did, and then looking at an augmentative communication system so they can get rid of the behavior and replace it with something more appropriate and more what we need. Okay. So those are your attention seekers. Calling out, swearing, cursing. I have people get rid of their cussing on their fingers. I let them flick it away. If you have a cusser, if you've got a kiddo who's fully verbal, huge high verbal ability, and they're cursing in class the entire time. I've worked with lots of kids with Tourette syndrome. I've worked with lots of kids like that, and they need a release for that. And instead of cursing in the middle of the classroom, you get rid of it right here. But let me tell you, you got to do this with them for 2 or 3 weeks so they understand that you're remembering that this is how I'm getting rid of this, instead of like telling them once, I expect you to do this, and then not practicing it with them. So drop something on your toe and go, and they'll say to you, was that the big one? Was that the F one? What was that? And they'll literally ask you because you're using the strategy too. I would tell mom and dad about that. I would tell teachers about that. I would tell every one of us sitting in the room about that. Get rid of those frustrations on your fingers. No one even knows you're doing that. You can do it very silently. It's a replacement behavior. I am all about, if you haven't figured it out by some of you that know me, what can we replace this with that's appropriate in this setting, okay? So, that's your little tantrum there. So solution or interventions that focus on that person getting appropriate attention, getting talked to in an appropriate manner. I had a family in my office the other day, and it was an hour consult, brand new family, mom and dad, and they have, they have 6 kids under 12 now, but they were at one point 6 under 6, so they range from 12 to 6, okay, right now. And they said, our house is an absolute disaster right now. So here's what I did. I counted how many times they verbally directed the kids in an hour while they were all in my office. My office is not that big. And they had 47 redirections to the kids in an hour. Do you want to know how many times they told them good job or good choice or big old goose egg? So that kiddo is so used to that negative attention that they're literally seeking it and baiting their parents to get it by pulling Sally's hair and putting them in a headlock. And mom and dad can't ignore. So I'll help your hands stay calm. Thank you. And you move right on. And timing's a big piece of that, all that. And that's what I gave you at the end of all this. I'm so excited is I gave you like the 9 things that I learned between those collective trainings that I shared with you guys and really feel like are super effective that you can take to school tomorrow and really utilize appropriately. So giving, just think about this conceptually, giving appropriate adult attention. If they really love that attention, make a signal response. When I tap right here twice, I'm looking at you because I know you're paying attention and you're listening right now. And that's maybe more appropriate for some of our resource settings than our other setting, and so there will be some that are going to be more appropriate in our other setting. But signal responses are a great way to give good attention following something. And without calling, a lot of our resource kiddos don't want to be called out in that reg ed setting. They don't want any more attention drawn to them because they already know they have an IEP. They already know, they can feel that, and they don't want that. And so our students that suffer from learning disabilities, so forth, signal responses is one of the best ways to do that. Any of you guys seen the Fat City video, Richard Lavoie, How Difficult Can This Be? Have you guys seen it? Yeah. I show it every year at every class on campus. It's well worth it. If we get a little time today, I'll just even show you a clip of it. Makes you feel like you have a learning disability because the pace is too fast, the visual processing is inappropriate, all these things go on. The whole thing's on YouTube now. They've clipped it all on YouTube. I have an old VHS, and then I bought the DVD, and now it's all free on YouTube. But Bozeman Schools owns the thing that you could ask at Wilson if you could just watch it. Or now you can just get on your computer and stream it in. But it's called Fat City Video, How Difficult Can This Be? And the guy's name is Richard Lavoie. And it is phenomenal. And I should have put it in the end of this, but I didn't. But I can certainly send that to you guys in the email. It is one of the best things to watch. My students reliably at the college, I teach upper level psych classes, so I have behavior mod, psych of learning, internship, and then I've got this advanced behavior analysis class. And they inevitably say every teacher on this college campus should watch that video before they ever teach for a day. Because it just makes you feel like you have a processing delay, like you have and it does it all through a simulation that's too fast and it doesn't give you enough information to really figure out what they're trying to ask you for. So it's a really powerful video, and it's a really great thing to look at. So, plan ignoring, reinforcing other children's desirable behavior, that's sometimes what you gotta go to here, isn't it? So you're not necessarily, because you don't want to say a lot of attention, no, stop. You're saying, Jesse, I love how you're sitting. Sally, that's it. Good feet under you. George, yeah. And then you're hoping that attention maintainer person is going, oh, I better sit up. Now, sometimes that doesn't work that lovely. But in theory, if they really want attention, it should. There might be something else going on, like a sensory need. I can't sit up right now because I'm so wiggly. My butt bone feels like it's on fire. Literally had kids tell me that. It feels like there's a fire poker, Shauna, right there, and they're literally trying to get input on their cruxus, on their buttonhole. So some of the teachers and some of the great teachers I've consulted with in this town use high top tables for 4th and 5th grades. They're all on balls. Right now, you guys would probably prefer a ball to the hard chairs. And they're all getting some input while they're listening. Some are on floor pillows. They don't even have desks anymore. Problem with that is when they go to 5th grade, if 4th grade's the floor pillow teacher, then they go to 5th grade to hard chairs, they're kind of set up, to maybe not do so great in there. But we have to look at that. Are they sitting at a 90? Are they sitting, you always want your kids sitting back like this at a 90, at a perfect 90. So if your kid's little guy with Down syndrome, I walked in the other day to another school far away from here, and his legs are just a flinging underneath, and he's just going, he's too short to sit at a 90, and your best learning position is a 90. So you just picture, that 90 degree all the way down. And if you have some kids, like I was in 4th grade, eating my knees because I was 6 foot in the 4th grade, you got to get them a bigger desk. That's just the way it goes. You got to get them a different sitting apparatus so they're at a 90. Okay? All right, all of those things are things to think about. Reprimanding has shown ineffective in dealing with attention-seeking behavior. Why? It's attention. It's negative attention. I got him. Woohoo! I got him. You're in aisle 12 again in Walmart. You're standing there. I bumped into Barb. Barb's got her little one with her, and she doesn't have any little ones anymore, do you? Barb's got her little one with her. I'm standing there, and I say, "Hi, so nice to meet you," and I give her a big hug. And her little one's like, "Mom, Mom, 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 Mom," and Barb's ignoring her little one, and she's just pulling on the side of her shirt. This happens all the time. My husband says I can hand out business cards in Walmart. They probably could, but she's just hanging on, and Barb gives the little one no attention, and so she reaches off and hauls and kicks Barb right in the shin while we're talking. Barb stops our conversation. I made you the bad guy here, sorry. Turns and looks at the kid and says, "You may not kick Mama." Okay, what is just, and that's great. She gave the child a limit. She said, "Nope, you may not kick Mama." What's going to happen the second she starts talking to me again? If they really wanted attention, they're going to go right to the kick, forget all the mama. They're going to go right to in the shin because that got action. Sometimes it's that basic, you guys. Sometimes it really is that basic. Where that's what got me attention, so I'm going to go back to it again and do it over and over and over again. So what should Barb do in this situation? This is totally a fake situation. Ignore or say to her when she touches you, "I'll be done in a moment. I realize you want my attention right now, but you're going to have to wait. Why don't you do a 10 count in your head? Why don't you do it?" Do you see? And so you frame the wait time. How many of you guys hate dead time in the classroom? It's the biggest behavior impeder that we have. If something's not structured to go to next, it's awful. Because you're like, I don't know, what is next? Where do we go right now? And the kids know that because it is not structured, it is not framed. Does that make sense? Okay. So reprimanding is a negative because it gives them a form of attention. All right, escape. Little goldfish. I want out now. Any questions so far? You guys stop me because I need water every once in a while and a little oxygen would be maybe good too. Any questions so far? Okay. Don't list on me. All right, escape motivated. I want out now. I love it when it's escape motivated because often it's too hard. Often you haven't given them a way to escape a situation that is appropriate. I love it when I see escape motivated behavior because it's one of the easiest ones to treat. And sensory. Medical's probably the hardest because we don't know what they're coming in with, what's going on in the morning, that kind of stuff. So escape motivated behavior, problems usually stem from unclear work, a situation, activity, or location you're trying to avoid. You don't want to be there at all. I can now give you headphones in Walmart and we'll have a successful Walmart run. Here, lunchroom. Clanging, banging, noise, extraordinaire noise because the floors are hard, the walls there's a lot of kids in there, and I want to escape that situation right now. So we need to make either the white noise, the headphones, all of these different things come into play, and really watch, are they escaping the food or the environment? Best way to do some of those things is get them in that environment before it gets noisy. So they hear the noise. You should go to Bozeman High. 1,900 kids in a hallway, all groping each other. I mean, we have a great high school, but I'm just saying, walk down the halls with one of your kiddos that's affected with a learning difference, and walk down that hallway and watch what's going on sometime. It is like overwhelming to the nth degree. I told you, Sydney, Montana, Class A school. I graduated with 140 kids in my class. Not tiny, right? But not 600. Okay, so it is kind of crazy to walk through there. That kid, I want to escape, so I'm sure they do. So transition times before the bell. Here, stuff that we do, we're all walking down to APE together. Oh, maybe we go a couple minutes early because the halls are crowded right then, and we're watching that, because that transition is not the best for this kid, because they'll flee. It's too loud, what's in clumpy boots, what's going on? If they're verbal with you and tell you that, I mean, if you listen to them, they're telling you everything that's happening when they're verbal. Their nonverbal body's telling you that too. The lights, the terrible lights. Do you know I was actually doing a consult with a 4th grader, and he was working on math timings with his teacher, great teacher, a little bit west of here. They're sitting there, they're working hard, he's focused, and I see him doing this with his eyes. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but like this kind of thing, and then he's shaking his head and he's thinking. So I said to him, and he was slightly verbal, I said, are the words wiggling, honey? Are they kind of moving around? Are they wiggly like a snake? And he's like, so I grabbed my polarized glasses, not even joking, this is April, and the teacher's like, Shauna, I swear to you, if this makes a difference, I'm going to scream right now. Because I've been working on this since literally day 1 of school, and I put my glasses on, and now any kid, 4th grade kid in resource, trying to do some math work and timings, right? If they really don't like the glasses, this little guy's head was so small, they're just slipping, it's slipping. And when I knew they made a difference, he held them here and filled in with this. Okay, those polarized lenses cut this glare from these awful fluorescent lights. So do you remember the old, in the 80s, and totally dating myself here, they had the colored overlays that you could put over stark white paper against these lights. That cuts the glare. Our kids with autism and seizure diagnoses can actually have seizure activity from ambient screensavers on your Macs. The ones that kind of, woo, you can trigger their electrical activity. I've seen it with a kid hooked up in an MRI. So there are things, like we shouldn't let them just veg in front of that. When their mouth is hanging open and they're so excited to see that, they are actually getting overstimulated with their visual system, and so then it crosses at your brain, you bring it back out, all that kind of, so think about this, and that kid may escape that particular situation, or they may be so drawn to that. So this little guy, I sent him to Sarah Hill at Heights 2020 Eye Care, who's getting no kickbacks from this presentation, I promise. She's a visual therapist, and that's exactly what she works on, is cutting the glare and those sorts of things. She used to be in Billings. Guys, I had clients drive to Billings twice a week to go see her, and she lives here now. And she is a super reference for something like that, for someone who's, the words are wiggling, make darn sure everything here is happening the way it should be. Because if your occipital lobe is compromised, and you're bringing in your visual information, and it's not crossing it and bringing it back out, you're in trouble. I had a little girl in a classroom who could only see black and white discrimination. Teacher could not figure out what was going on with her. She got wiggly in her seat, she just could not sit still. She could see no colored markers on the board. My students at college can't believe this story, because they're like, so what did she do when they walked up there to use a colored marker? I said, we thought she was having psychotic breaks. Now imagine, you can't see colors, so you go up with a red marker, right? You guys with me on this? And you start writing with a red marker, and you're the kid who can't see that at all, and she's like, what's my teacher doing right now? Like, she can't see that visual discrimination. All she could see was black and white. So positional seating up towards the front, that was something we never even knew could happen. And Dr. Hill helped her with that. I mean, she started doing shades off of the black to the gray, where it was a little lighter, and watched how she could then start to process it, and your brain can learn that when you're young. Little kids who have the lazy eye, the eye that goes sideways when the other one's, you can actually patch the dominant eye and make this one suck back in, and they don't have to have the surgery when they're 12 and 14 and things like that, and it really helps with their visual. But there's stuff to do early is my point, and it's lots of kids escape the work when they can't. Would you escape the work when the words wiggle? And you think your teacher's insane because she's writing nothing in invisible ink on the board? I mean, how long would that take to get at your cognition? Like, I don't see anything up there, you know, and that's what this little one was trying to do. And so what'd she do? Bathroom break, bathroom break. May I please go to the bathroom? She'd walk up and we'd like 17 bathroom breaks in a little learning section. And we finally figured out that's what it was. Have you ever heard of that in your life? I hadn't. That was the first in 21 years where she was bringing in 3% of her visual information. 3. So movement, quick movement she didn't see. So gym. So we're going to play badminton in gym now. Tell me how that's going to go for her. Literally, shuttlecocks flying on your head and you're trying to get them away and you don't even see them coming at you. And these are our kids with more motor delays too. We've got to think about what the best, you know, balloon volleyball is one of my best suggestions for some of our kiddos who have more impeding delays, where we have a big balloon blowing up and they go over the thing and they can see it coming and it takes time because it floats back down, versus volleying a ball, because a balloon takes, you can see it. It's visual, you can get to it. Okay, so teach the person how to use socially acceptable escape behaviors. Asking for help, signal responses. My older kids who don't want to be called out, more in your resource setting, I have them put their eraser on the top quadrant on the right-hand side of the desk, and that means they need a little 5-minute break, or a 2-minute break, if this is getting hard. Some of the kids, I have them label whether work is easy, medium, hard, with just highlighters, and they'll highlight it green if it's easy, they'll highlight it yellow if it's hard, starting to get hard, and red if it's really hard. So then we have an idea of what's easy, medium, hard. Some of your kiddos you work with at Irving, I've done that exact strategy with, and it works very well, and it falls right into the zones of regulation, which I'll show you later. Some of our other kids who can't say it, I'll let them flip a card that says I need a break, a big map switch that says I need a break. Something like that that tells us I need a sensory break right now, where they start owning their body and how they're feeling. Does that make sense? All right, Dana, can you see around me? Or am I blocking?
No, I can.
Okay. I know I could be most definitely in the way here. All right, increase incentives for difficult tasks. You have to. They have a little bit more, so that easy, medium, hard is a great way to do that. So when you set up their math, it's easy, easy, ooh, challenger, medium, easy, easy, easy. Something like that down the list. So you've got them based on how you're presenting it to them. It's never, and you want to always challenge. Best, okay, I think this was meant to be a criticism, but to me I took it as a compliment, was you're too hard on my kiddo. I never take, like, just this is where they're at. Nope, let's push to that next level. Let's push to that next level. And you've got to do that very carefully or you can overwhelm someone, right? But I loved that. I wasn't going to just keep, it was a little guy duly diagnosed with Down syndrome and autism, out-of-state consult, and honest to goodness, you guys, I am not kidding you when I tell you this. Are you ready for this? 7th grade. Okay, 7th grader. We missed at every elementary level for him, because I sat down with him and I said, go ahead and read this newspaper article. Principal's standing there. And I said, I think he's got way more in there than we have ever tapped into, but he can't write and he can't speak. So what do we immediately assume? He doesn't have it, right? As we're watching him. How would he ever tell us what the body of that work is if we don't offer him like a multiple choice way to do this, as something or other, right? And so as we're doing this, as we're reading through, we start stopping and going back and going, uh-oh. So we read a section on logging. I was in Seattle for this consult. We read a section on logging. And we get all the way to the bottom of it, and I give him 6 multiple choice questions at the bottom. You gotta know what he scored on those 6 multiple choice. Couldn't write. So what does he do? He points to every answer. A, B, C, D. You guys, I gave him 4 choice answers on 6 questions. 24 things he had to process if you count the answers and the question, right? And this kiddo pointed to the right answer, and then I said, you dot that with your marker. You say, this is what I want, and I gave him a highlighter. Boom, I showed him once. Second time he pointed, and then he grabbed the marker and went like this, boom. And I mean, I don't care if it's like this. We always correct, right, the positioning. By the way, great way to correct the positioning is mom and dad in the front of the van, kids go in the back. You see that? Mom and dad are in the front seat, kids are in the back. When the kids start coming up here, no, you're in your child's chair in the back seat. When they start lapping over and you're doing this kind of thing, kids go in the back. Mom and dad sit in the front of your van, kids are in the back. And they have to come behind and hold on to that, and it takes the argument out of it. But this little guy, I didn't care how he showed us, because he's a 7th grader now. 7th grader. Do you know what they were doing with him when I got there? Colors, shapes, numbers, letters, alphabet board in foam puzzles, okay? Some of these things sound familiar to us in the elementary level, right? This is what we were doing with him, and he was having enough behaviors where he would just fall to the floor and get mad, hit himself, kind of plop, that we weren't even getting to the academic work with this individual. And so now he's a 7th grader who, by the way, principal was standing there like this. Like, we never knew he knew any of this. Any of this. And I said, keep going. I mean, I'm done now. Now you can start assessing what he actually knows, what he has for comprehension skills, what he has for reading, writing, what we've missed at for all these years, and start getting him responding to that. iPad, we have the technology to do it. We didn't necessarily in my era, right? One of my best friends in school was legally blind, and it was an act of Congress to get her the big books so she could look at them. She is still legally blind. And, you know, I think about that now, and she had the huge textbook to ours, and how is that when you sit in the class in your book? She needed a second desk just to have her materials on, and so she was totally isolated and set up. Well, there's the girl that can't see, and the crud she got, right, for that, which is where also my love of all this came from, because I was, of course, the protector, like, keep her alone. Right, yeah. I was a couple referrals to the office for that, because I couldn't stand that then. As a kid, I couldn't stand that, right? Like, here's 2 books, and this is where she sits, and now everyone else sit around her, and orientation and mobility, are you kidding me? Like, what? We didn't know that. We didn't know to do it, right? And some of our students that collectively in our schools are significantly visually impaired, and so it's just another little thing to put in your wheelhouse of, oh man, we gotta look at this and see how much they're noticing, right? She was not cognitively delayed at all, but that double book, you know, made her feel like it every single day. So, super good friend of mine. Utilize assistive media technologies and other curricular accommodations. Do you guys know about some of these things like academicskillbuilders.com? No? Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Corey caught you in the middle of the yawn with academic. No, I don't care about that. I care about, if you had it in front of you, it'd be a little better. But let me just show you some of this. I put it in the end of this, but I just kind of want to show you. Hey, Lisa. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but now that I know we don't have smart boards, which is fine. I'm not going to petition the school for smart boards. If we could, that'd be great. But we have these. You seen this? So there's very simple too. You get online, you play the Grand Prix game. It's free. Grand Prix multiplication. Play it. I don't know, we're probably going on. So you can say public, I'm going to do private. Well, if it's private, how do I join it? Let's just see what Destiny's doing here. Oh, I can't. Okay. So let's do public. Okay, we're player 531. You see it? Start game. I won't go all the way through this, I promise, but I just want you to see that this exists. Your kids won't multiply, they won't add, but I bet they'll play a card game. There's a racehorse one. So now I have to pick down here where we're at. See it? And they don't want to do regular math, but they'll do this math. And there's more remedial levels for some of our other individuals that we work with, but I can think of several in this building.
What happens if they get it wrong?
Okay. Slow down.
Just check.
No, it's perfect. That's a great, yeah, exactly. What happens? You're still not out of the group, but you're just, okay, we need to work on those facts more. It tracks this, tracks how many they've missed, how many they've gotten right, what they were. Anyway. All right, free. academicskillbuilders.com, like arcade. And again, if you do, some of the smaller schools in this state have smart boards. And so then they bring the kids right up and they can mechanically just point at the right answer, you see, and you can do, we're doing Apple TV in one of the schools I consult with, and the resource teacher, or not the resource, the special ed teacher, life skills teacher is getting an Apple TV to show her little preschoolers some of the starfall and some of that kind of stuff where they can go back and forth and actually have some interaction with it because they use the iPad, and then you guys know way more than I do about that, our tech people. So, very important to remember, timeout's likely going to increase escape motivated behavior. Because why? They got out of it. Woo! If you ever use timeout for something a kid doesn't want to do, make sure they go back to what they didn't want to do to get them in timeout. You may accommodate it more. You may pull out the sand table like we did the other day to make it fun. You might do something like that to then go back to that, but you want to go back to that particular activity, and then they don't escape. And I don't mean to sound like it might sound, but they don't get out of it without ever going back to it. It's really important. If you just say time away, get your body super green, great. I'll be kicking over here till math's done, and then I'll come back for social studies or science, because I don't like math. And so I'll keep throwing a fit through that whole class time till it's time to transition on. I know lunch is coming, I know recess is coming, I know what's coming in 10 minutes, so I'm gonna just throw a fit till then, okay? Power and control. They have to gain power over a situation. They have to get it because, and you guys, this can be your kiddo with significant emotional disturbance too. Think about it. At home, if they're in the lead, if they're in control, if they feel in control, things may not happen to them like bad things, abuse and things like that. They might always have been caretaking for mom. Maybe it's a situation where they've always had to. I had a 7-year-old that I consult with. He's 18 now. And you guys, he had a 4-year-old sister, and he ran the home for the mom who was non-present. He got groceries. It wasn't until CPS saw him with 2 bags of groceries for the house. So you know what the hardest thing with that particular individual has been in the 5 years I've known him and the 7 prior, to let go of that. Because when you're running a house and you're 7, think about your 7-year-olds. He's going to get all their groceries, basic needs. Mom's addicted to meth. He's running the house, and he's caring for his 4-year-old little girl until he gets removed. Mom actually killed herself. Anyway. All right, so, but trying to get that power and control out of that kid, that was his mainstay. That was his responsibility. Where we say to him, don't argue about this, just accept. Say, okay, I know you know what's best for me. Just trying to get him to be a kid again, right? After having that kind of a role and what he was to do, just trying to get him to be a functional kid again was near to impossible. You see that? Okay. So, child always needed to be correcting that teacher 116 instead of the 116, that sort of thing. Gaining appropriate power and control. These are your good co-teachers. These are your good kids that you say, we're working on this today. Can you please bring that tub around for me in gym class? Can you please bring me the volleyballs? Can you please get me, you're my teacher helper today. That's what will hook this kiddo. So they feel like you've developed the power and control, but you've let them come into it, and you've got to practice those times where they get it appropriately. That make sense? And they're great co-instructors. I have a kid who tells me more about F-22 fuselage components. I swear to goodness, his dad's a pilot. He is high on the spectrum, autism, Asperger's. IQ rocks mine by 30 points, I'm positive. But he could make a fuselage component right now. He could sit here and put one together. And if someday, he will probably be an aeronautic engineer. But right now, when we're talking in science class, you don't have to be a know-it-all. I need you to say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, I don't know the answer to that chart in his house. Because he's so used to knowing it all. 2 girls I worked with, okay, you ready for this? 2 girls I worked with, they both had skipped grades. They were both instructionally challenged when they were young, lots of behaviors, but then we realized what was going on with them, and they were on the spectrum, and super high IQs, super auditory and visual photographic memories, basically. So they have auditory memory and visual memory. And they get into pre-calc in their high school and say to me, I can't do it anymore, Shauna. They're in this AP Calc, sorry, it wasn't pre-calc, AP Calc class when they're freshmen in high school. I loved math, I was almost a math teacher, but I guarantee you, no way. So, they're sitting there and they're going, we can't do it anymore, something's wrong with us, Shauna, something's wrong with us. And their anxiety was so high that one of them ended up had to go to residential treatment just to lower her anxiety about this. Guess what it was? They couldn't just sit and listen and watch and do AP Calc as freshmen. And I'm like, welcome to the real world. This is not, we can't just normally watch a 25-step process and remember it and hear it. They can repeat everything verbatim to you. It's like, have any of you seen the Temple movie? When she sits down and reads the book page and she can read all the ills in French, when she reads that page, she shuts the book and can read it to you. I don't know if any of you have seen so many of you are so much younger than I am, but the Rain Man movie, the real Rain Man, that his name was Kim Peek, he passed away a couple of years ago. I presented with him in Billings with Ron LaFerriere and some other people. We picked him up from the airport, brought him down. I don't know if you know this about him or not, but he remembered every factoid. If it was ever in print, he remembered it and could give it to you like that. So he came to meet me, and I had my presenter name tag on, and he pulled my name tag from right here and said, Shauna Heiser. I said, well, Zimmerman originally, Heiser now, and he's like, oh, where are you from? And I said, Sydney, Montana, and he said, oh, 59270. It's a zip code in Sydney. And then he said, so what's the deal with the phone numbers there? They had some that were 406, 433, and then they did 482, and then they did 488. Why'd they do that anyway? I don't know, sir. I have not a clue right now. All I know is that you know every single fact. And we found out later he didn't have a parietal lobe, so everything he learned, he stored. He didn't dump anything away. And I think about our power and control kids. How annoying would it be, you guys, to sit and say, we looked at physics, we looked at something like this, and that teacher's wrong right now. But I have to know that social skill to shut my mouth, bite my tongue, and know what different method I need to use. Anything he saw in print, he could read in 18 seconds. He didn't have to cross. His eyes didn't have to cross where ours do. When I read this, my eyes need to cross to interpret everyone here. He could read French here and physics here and read them both dually in 18 seconds. Okay. It's like photographic memory to the nth degree, right? Taking a picture and never even, and then going back through it. But that person is anxiety ridden. He couldn't live alone. His dad cared for him till the day he died. His big anxiety was that he would outlive his dad. That was his dad's big anxiety too. At 80 years old, when they came here to Billings and we, did this presentation with them for CEC, it was unbelievable to meet both of them. Dad's anxiety was, am I going to leave before him? Because he was so wrapped up into power and control, because anything in print that he had ever read, he never forgot. Now, at some point, I think you'd go a little cuckoo crazy with that, right? Like, I can't dump unimportant information. Your brain is set up to store 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of memory. So it's set up to take 5 to 9. That's why we made phone numbers 7 chunks long. I don't know if you guys remember that from your